Welcome, patrons, to this first session of 12 Days of Healing. I know how our art is truly therapeutic during this time, and I pray you'll join me in creating these little paintings once a day for 12 days. Now, I would love for us to all share our work together, and I know we've typically been doing that in the Facebook group, but there are many of our patrons who are not even in the Facebook group or aren't on Facebook anymore. So I promised I would come up with an alternate way for us to share our images, and I have found that Google Photos is a great way to share albums. So I've created an album specifically for this particular 12 painting challenge. I am providing the link here in this Patreon post. All you're going to have to do is click the link. You are in the album. You can add your photos. You can give it a title. You can comment on the other photos that you see. So that way we will have all of our participants from this particular challenge all in that one album. So you guys give me your feedback. Let me know how it's working out. And I can't wait to see if you post. You can still post it on Facebook, just so you know. Feel free to post it in the Susan Jenkins Patreon group. That's fine. But I'd also love you to put it in the other group so the people who aren't on Facebook can see your work as well. All right, let's get started with this painting in session 1. Hello, patrons. I thought I'd include my little Jackson in this. If you have fur babies during this challenge, don't they just bring you some peace? Jackson, you're just the best boy. You are. I love you so much. Okay, you want to get down there? Okay, now we're about to begin our 12 painting challenge. I don't even want to call it a challenge, opportunity, so that we can all work together and I can hopefully teach you a lot during this season while we are quarantined or staying at home, and there's a lot of good that's coming out of this too, so it's all awesome. But what I'm using is I'm making selections out of the, as I shared before, the Paint My Photo site. You are welcome to become an account holder and Paint My Photo, pmp-art.com, and go find me if you want to use the photos in my album. I'll also be sharing this photo if you want to create from this. So what I did, I looked through some of my different albums, and I really liked this one called Marshes. I love marshes. And again, I'll be working from the thumbnails. I find there's so many advantages to working from thumbnails. I'll talk more about that as I paint. But in looking through all of these, it's hard because I like them all. Obviously, I picked them to save in this album, so I obviously like them all. But I really, this one seems very simple. It might be a good one to start with, but it looks rather toned all pink, okay? And it might appear as boring, but I just see a neat composition. I like how the water is flowing through there. I like the distant trees. But sometimes, too, I wanted to share with you, it's a good idea often when you find a painting or a reference image is the majority of one color, even though you like it, how would you add some pizzazz to that? One great way to do that is to create an underpainting that is the complement of that color. And so I know that with the pinks and some of these almost like magenta colors and everything, I thought a teal or aqua might be a nice complement to that underneath the painting. And I also thought with this little series that I'm doing here that it would be neat for me to use some different products to show you. You can use whatever you have. I know not everybody has these products, but it'll kind of introduce you to some products and maybe show you new ways of doing things. So for this particular one, number 1 in the series, I'm using the Neo Color, I never know how to say this, Caran d'Ache, I never say that part. It's a Neo Color 2 water-soluble wax pastels. Now, I still don't even know why they're called pastels because they look like crayons. They don't behave like crayons. You can't do what I'm going to do with crayons like these. So, but they're neat. I really love using this. Sometimes I forget to pull them out. But water soluble, they truly are. You can use them with water or alcohol to create an underpainting. And just so you know, I am using UArt sanded paper. Use whatever you have. I have a video on creating your own pastel surfaces as well. It's called 8 Ways to Make Your Own Pastel Paper, something like that. So if you find yourself during this quarantine period that you don't have all that you need, maybe in that video you can come up with a creative way to come up with something you can work on. And these lessons are flexible too. Even if you just have watercolor, I mean, you can really do a lot with other mediums with these lessons as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tone my UArt sanded paper, which does take water. There are a couple of sanded surfaces that you don't want to use water on. One of them is Sennelier Le Carte Pastel Card. No water on that one. But this does take water, so I'm going to do a nice, cool teal turquoise underpainting with these wax pastels. You could use watercolor for your underpainting if that's all you have. You could use a teal colored soft pastel, tone it, brush it with water if you have a paper that takes water, or alcohol, and go from there. So it's time to get started with this little reference image. Again, I'm working from the thumbnails. It's a great way to work. So here we go, time to paint. Okay, now I'm getting started with this first one, and I'm starting at the bottom of my large page that I have marked off. And the reason I'm doing that is because I know what I'm doing with this alcohol. It's going to drip a lot. Typically, if I'm just using pastels and I'm working on a surface like this, I would start at the top, because if I start the paintings at the bottom, I know you can't see my hand, but if I start the paintings at the bottom and then I do another painting on the top of it, the pastel dust may contaminate it. Sometimes I'll cover it up with a piece of paper. So I just point that out for you to be aware of those things as you start to paint. And you know, you can cover things up and try to work around it, but I try to be conscious of those things. Now, what I've got here, a little dish, a brush, some paper towels, and some alcohol. And I find it doesn't matter whatever alcohol you have. The reason I'm using alcohol is it dries faster than water. Both of them work just about the same, but I always like to speed it up. Sometimes I think the alcohol does behave a little differently, the way it drips and runs, but that might just be me. So I'm just putting a little bit of alcohol in here. Again, it's a little painting. We don't need much of anything. That's another reason for picking the smaller sizes, is these can be relatively fast, and sometimes we have more fun when they're small. I do anyway. All right, now the two pastel colors I'm choosing is you know what? I've got an idea here. Let's see, what's this one? This is Cobalt Blue. Okay, it's the Neo Color Wax Pastel Cobalt Blue. And I've also got a turquoise. This is a lighter value here. And I see also too, I've got a darker value. This is some of them are Prussian blue. There's another one I have that I like that's in that color family, which is, I may have torn the label off of this one. Yeah, I can't see this one, but this is also a neat, this one's more of a blue. This one's got more green in it. I kind of like that one too. So if you're doing this with watercolor or pastel, you can choose something in these color families. You may want to, I had considered, and I still am considering, maybe just doing a single. I think I might do that to make this one easier. Since it's the first one, I was thinking about doing the land in a darker and all that. But let me just tone it. I'm going to play with these two, okay? I think this one's a little too light. This one's a little too dark. So I think I'm going to kind of combine these two. Let's do that. Let's not make this too complicated to start out with. All right, so what I've got is, I know my sky is lighter in this. So I'm just going to, I turn it on the side, and I'm just going to go ahead and get me in some sky color here. And this is, again, what's called an underpainting. And I think I'll just get me in a little bit of this down here for the land. And the horizon in this is relatively low. Again, you can just do this if you want, and do the composition with pastels if you want. But yeah, it's kind of in the lower third. And, you know, then we've got a little bit of stuff going on here in the water. But I think I'm going to worry about that with pastels. So we're not going to get all that stuff going on there. Okay, so only thing I think I might do is I'm going to take this. I'm going to go a little, even though I'm going to be dripping, I'm going to go a little darker in the upper part of the sky, because that's usually the way it works in landscapes or in the world. The skies are usually darker in the heavens. All right, so now all I'm doing is I'm wetting my brush in the alcohol. I dab it off a little bit so it's not so drippy. And I typically work top from bottom. Sometimes I'll do horizontal strokes. Sometimes I'll do a little bit of both. That seems to let it show more when I do this. Isn't that a beautiful color? And that's really going to be a nice underpainting for that, the pinks that we're going to be using. I'm adding just alcohol as I see that I need it. Let it drip, that's okay. Embrace the drips. Sometimes we can fuss too much over it, and it looks better when it is a little crazy, all right? So now I'm just getting some of these distant trees in here. There's like a big band of trees in the back, and then there's like a smaller band that's kind of like further away, way back there somewhere. And I'm losing some of my color, but that's okay. You can reestablish all of this with pastels. This is just to get that pretty glow. And we know that there are reflections. And again, you don't have to do all this right now. I just know I'm going to go ahead and get it in here just so I have it. This can all be done with pastels. We do have some little bodies of water, bodies of land kind of jutting out here. And there's a little bit more back here. I do kind of like to create that S-shaped curve. See how this is wide right here? And it's coming in with the water in this way. It's like, shoo, we're getting a little motion and stuff going on back there. So that's kind of neat. But let me go ahead. Again, this is not going to show with this, but I'm going to go ahead and tone it all anyway. And I'll get that water motion. Oh, this is higher back there. That land back there. Okay. So see how we're just getting some nice color in there? Isn't that nice? I like that. And I haven't even coated it all with the alcohol. You really don't have to. Okay, so looky there. We got a nice little underpainting going, and it didn't even take all that long. Pretty cool. Okay, I'm actually holding my phone to show you some of the, might look like a lot of pastels for this little painting, but I really didn't want to have to get back up. I've got a pretty big assortment here of new pastels by Prismacolor. This is my box that they came in actually, and I just have them loosely assorted by color, sort of by value, not really. And they actually are great little pastels, and they're really great for initial stages of painting because they take up less tooth on the sanded surface if you're working on a sanded surface. Another thing I forgot to mention is that the Neocolor pastel that I used on here too really takes up none of the tooth. I mean, this is still just as sanded as before I added this. I've put a little index card here that I'm going to show you the colors on as I work. But what my reasoning is, I know I need some lighter pinks for the sky. And but there's also there's a combination of cool and warm colors in the sky. So that's why I got some of these pinks that are a little cooler. These would be a cooler pink, and this would be a warmer pink, almost more of a peach, okay? Warm just leans more towards yellow, has more yellow in it. Cooler usually has less yellow in it, if you want to think of it that way. I do have a video on warm and cool colors if you would like to find that. I've organized my videos on Monet Cafe YouTube channel into playlists. So if you go into color theory, that playlist, you'll find videos that have more to do with that. So I know I have some colors in the sky. Now I added this little pizzazzy pink here because I just wanted to have something, a little punchy color, and these are my punchy colors that are teal. Now I know my background is already kind of teal, but there may be areas where that gets covered up and I want some of that. This is also another gorgeous color here. All right, so I have some of my teal colors that'll work more towards the distant trees, and I've got my sky colors. And I've also got, I should have mentioned first, I usually talk about the darks first because that's what I put down first. I've got a combination of darks. Again, use what you have. If you've got a darker purple, a darker blue, whatever, something like that. And I really love this little
purpley color I thought I would add a little bit of. Now, I know I've got those warm, gorgeous colors of the grasses. This whole general painting feels more, or reference image feels more of that pink and some of those other warm colors that are going to be in the grasses. And warm colors come forward. So these will be more of my colors. Again, I just got an assortment. You don't need all of these. Probably 2 values of warm. I might go with something more like this. This is if I have grasses further back. They get paler in value. And this nice, gorgeous kind. This is a Terry Ludwig dark. I can't remember which. It's the Intense Darks. I think it's set number 1. That is just a gorgeous kind of magenta, deep burgundy. Now these, because new pastels sometimes aren't quite as brilliant in color, see how they look a little more washed out? I think it's because they have more binder in them, maybe. I'm not sure. But I wanted some punchy colors for the grasses that really will bring some of those marshy grasses in the foreground. So that's just the general idea. And then I have a little teeny baby piece of pipe foam insulation that'll be good for blending, especially blending those reflections. Now these trees are far away, so we might not get much of those reflections, but we'll play around with that. All right, let's get started. If you've got something in these general color families, you will be good to go.
Okay, so we're ready to get started with our little 5x5 painting, or whatever you're working on. And I typically start by getting the darks in first. And you know, I did notice that a lot of my new pastels that I'm using are really longer than I like to work. Actually, I'm not sure if this one is a new oh yeah, this is a Derwent pastel, and actually I'd rather use the new pastel, so I'm not going to use that one. Sometimes I have them broken into smaller pieces, and sometimes I don't. Here's one. Well, this actually isn't a new pastel. It's a small dark that I had in there, but I'm going to use this because it's kind of like a dark bluish green. Now, I know these trees are not going to be this dark when we're done, but I'm going to go ahead and do it because, you know, I'm going to layer. We layer things to get different values and things. There's one little tree kind of poking up back there. And because this is so small, we don't need to, well, we never really need to get too fussy about details, but okay, so there's our little bank of trees. And again, I see some trees further back, but I'm not going to, sometimes I will do that with the darker color and then just layer a lighter color on top of it. But they're so far away that I think I'm just going to use a different value. Now I do have this bank. I've got to look at my banks of things because those are far away. I've got a little bank of grasses kind of like right in here. And then we've got something in here that's this, it's going to be a little bigger because it's in the foreground. Also, I'm trying to keep a light touch. Okay, and then we've got a band of grasses that's kind of, I like the motion of these. They're kind of coming up in here and bringing your eye into this painting. And there's a little band of something back here that we can, little things happening in the water back here, but they're going to be smaller and less value. All right, so now I know I'm going to have some reflections. Actually, you really don't see much reflection from these trees back here. You really see more, just a little bit. I'll get that when I get some light in down there. But we are going to have some reflections from these grasses here. I'm still going to wait on those. But right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add, let me see how this reads. Yeah, okay, this is the new pastel that's lighter in value. And we've got this little band of trees back in here. Actually, I might have that a little too high. And I'm kind of varying up. Some of them are taller and some of them are shorter that are going on back behind that. Okay, so now we've got our darks in. And what I can do actually is go ahead and blend these in. Actually, I think I'm going to wait till I do the sky. I'm going to blend them in with some pipe foam insulation, but I'm going to get the sky in first. Now, the upper sky here, I notice it has kind of, in the photo, it's got a little bit of a lavender feel or maybe even a blue behind it, but we've kind of already got our blue going right here. So I'm going to check some some colors here. This is that one new pastel. See, it's almost the same color as that. I think I will find something that's a little bit more of a lavender just for that upper sky. And I don't have a new pastel for that. So let me grab kind of a dulled out lavender that's lighter. Okay, so I've got two kind of nice lavender colors. I wanted it to kind of cool off more in the upper sky and get warmer in the lower sky. So here's the two that I have. This one's a little more pink. This one has a little more blue in it. This one's a little more grayed down. So let me check and see how dark that actually is. It's pretty dark, but I can lighten it up with, and I like kind of the energy that's going on in the sky. I can lighten it up with some of the lighter values that I put on it. Now I've got a band of clouds that's also darker. I kind of like that. I think I'd like to keep that band of clouds in there. But I'm going to use this lighter lavender over in here. This part of the sky doesn't have as many clouds in it. There's still a little bit more of this lavender up here that I'll blend in with that. And all of these kind of blend themselves. I need to scoot over more. I'm kind of working in a weird way. I hope the camera still shows. Sometimes painting while filming can be interesting. Now, I do like some of these warm colors that are starting to happen now. I can see they're kind of coming down and getting warmer. So I kind of like, oh, I didn't put a sample of this color there. I want to try to do that. Okay, see how that's a darker value, more of a gray, and that's more pink. All right, now let's get, this is the warmer new pastel. You see that pretty color? And I might even break this one if I have to. And then below that it gets a little bit darker in value and even warmer still. So you know what? I think I need to find another, oops, I did put this one down, yes. I think I need to find another little more orangey to it with this one. Let's see what we have here. And all right, this is the one that I found that's a little warmer. You see how that's a little warmer and a little darker in value? And this is another one that's a little more, a little warmer, okay, and a little lighter in value. And I do see some of both of those peachy and kind of yellow colors in the sky. So it does, I'm squinting my eyes. Squinting your eyes is usually a good way to see value. Again, I need to kind of scoot over. It's kind of hard for me to work sideways like that. And there's some more pinks down there at the base of these trees and things. Here's some more of this. Oh, I did put all those colors up there. This also, behind these trees is actually a little darker too. Is it that one? Yeah, it's the same one. I'm going to do this just to get some of that interesting sky that's, I don't know if it's like clouds right above the background. Again, these things can all be blended. It's definitely warmer on the right side of the image and cooler on the left side of it. Okay, now we got some of these yellows here. Kind of a little brighter. Now, my eyes see this photo as being very dull, kind of dreary, but I'm just punching it right up with these colors. Okay, and I do need to kind of lighten this up here. It's got a little pink in it. That's pretty light, but maybe I can keep a really light touch. That's actually a little bit too much color. I don't want that much color. And that one's too light, so I need more dull. This might do it. Okay, this blue right here, I'm just gonna kind of soften the sky up with this, because like I said, it's a little cooler over here. I'm just kind of getting it blended a little bit. Okay, now I'm gonna use, I don't think a lot of times I will blend the sky with the pipe foam insulation, but in this case, I think I'm going to let the pastels do the blending. because the sky is looking kind of interesting. All right, now I'm going to get some of these clouds in here. This right here is not quite dark enough for the clouds. This is the one that I used here. But it will be a nice pastel to blend whatever color I put on. Now I know this may seem like a little dark going on, this kind of medium blue to darker, kind of a dull blue. But we've got these clouds. One of them's just kind of, some of it's kind of over here like this, and then it has another little interesting shape right here. And then we've got the bigger ones, like right in here, kind of going off the page. And a few more little things. Clouds are so interesting. Look at that, and I feel like I need a little more something, like, we don't want to line them up like soldiers. Maybe a little something in here. Okay, so now that is really way too dark, obviously. It's not way too dark, but it's pretty dark. So I'm going to lighten those clouds up with this other pastel that was the more of the lavender. Just a little bit. It's a little light. This is a little too light. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to lighten them up a different way because it's taking away. It would work over here. Let's try it over there. Yeah, because these definitely, they get much lighter because it's like the sun. See that? The sun is back there. So they definitely lighten up. That's why I wasn't liking that, this color over here. It's just, it's too light. I'll get a little bit of it kind of receding back in here. Okay, and I almost feel like this one needs to be a little bigger and a little more energy to it. Let's make it, yeah, that's more like it. Okay, all right, so some of the stuff's gonna get blended in, but that's kind of a good start. Also too, I find that if you find you're working on something and you're just not sure about it, and just move on. Start working on something else, and often those things resolve themselves, and it keeps us from overworking things. All right, so I know I have a little bit more of this kind of dull looking pink going in like behind here, and I pulled another pink. I apologize for pulling other colors out, but this, see how this is a little darker in value, and I feel like there's something a little, this, it looks a little moody, you know, so I'm going to add some of this back in here. Again, I know it's a little cooler on the left side, but it's not totally cool either. We don't want to have a total separation of warmth and coolness. Okay, so now I got some of this darker down. Usually this is kind of going opposite of most skies, is that normally they're darker in the heavens and they get lighter at the horizon. But this one's rather interesting that it is a little darker at the horizon. It has to do with the time of day. I'm adding some of this pink over it. Now is where I'm kind of letting the pastels do the blending for the sky. And I may move on from the sky in just a minute, but I kind of just want to get some of this in to set my color mood before I move on to the land. Okay, here's this pretty, this color here again. And it's a little light. Let me try this one here. Yeah, this is that one that's, I am gonna have to break this one. This one's the one that's a little bit of a darker value here. Oh, actually it's even darker than that. I haven't even used this one yet. That's what it was. Okay, see how that sky's starting to come alive now? Right now, we can go on to using this lighter one, but it's almost a little too light. I'm still gonna add something behind that, not that one, to darken it up. Most likely this. I'm just going to use this just to kind of darken in between these clouds. And then I'm going to add that other color over top. It's neat that you can change things by just layering them. You can change the values just by layering. I know that I didn't have exactly the right kind of light to medium value there, but I knew I could put this one down that's darker so that I can now layer on top of it with this one. Okay. And even after this, I'm going to add a little bit of warmth to it because this one's a little, remember, this is that kind of cool pink. And I know very soon I'm going to have to move on from the sky because I don't want to get too much more going on in here. Okay, so here now is the one that I wanted to use, but it was just too light before. So I'm just really lightly working it kind of in between where I had these clouds. And notice too, I mean, even though these cloud bands that I made are somewhat disappearing, it's actually kind of nice because I didn't want them so prominent. All right, now I'm gonna get a few more little light bands in the sky. I want to kind of accentuate a couple of places where the sun might be peeking through a little bit more. I'm just kind of pressing and releasing a little bit. I also think I might do that. Didn't I have one that was a little bit more orangey? Yes, this one here. I think I might do that a little bit more in some places. Okay, now I'm going to do more here on this side here, but I feel like I need to move on before I do that. All right, so I want to kind of reestablish my background trees here. I think I am going to use this dark just to get them in a little bit more, to give them a little bit more definition. And I'm kind of varying the tree line so that it's not all monotonous. All right, now I can go in and add this little bit of a paler blue to push them back. This lighter value and this cooler color is really going to push those distant trees back more. I may even cool them off or pale them out a little bit more when I'm done, but that's a good start. All right, so leaving the sky alone for just a little while, I actually stepped back and I saw, I kind of wanted to make this grouping a little higher because we can kind of carve that water kind of in and out of this with, which side is closer? This is interesting because they look like both sides are the same in the photo, but I think I need to make a decision of whether I want this one. I think I am. I think I'm going to make this a little bit more in here to create a little more interest down here in the foreground and break things up a bit. So this one's the closest, then it's gradually going back, and then this one, and then this one, and then some of these little guys back in here. All right, so we've got our basic grasses in here. We're getting a sense of depth and feeling and motion. Now I am going to go ahead and get in some of these reflection like I mentioned. I don't think I'm going to, I think I am going to blend these trees with my little piece of pipe foam insulation, just to make them look further away, that illusion of depth. Yeah, that did have to push those back. I might pull a little bit down in the water to look like reflection there. I'll add a little bit more water right there at that band to create that illusion. And then I'm going to kind of soften this up back in here. I'm really just softening that little bit of extra dark that I had back in there. Again, it creates the illusion of pushing things back further away. All right, so now let me go ahead and get in some of these. Oh, actually, I forgot to add the shadows, like I said, or the reflections. Okay, so with reflections, all we do is kind of mirror what we see above. Kind of pull it down. And the same thing here. Obviously, it gets less and smaller. Okay, now I'm going to take the Fight Foam insulation and I'm going to pull it down. See how that creates the illusion of a reflection, and it really comes out or looks more believable when we add the water horizontal bands of water on top of it. All right, so we've got that illusion of reflections. Got some nice movement going with the water. That's going to have a little bit of reflections there, but I'm going to use what's already there to kind of pull it down a little bit. Okay, I just grabbed my box of Diane Townsend greens. I like this. I used it in one of my last videos, and it has such a good assortment of cool and warm greens. And they're a little chunky, a little big, but they've got these neat little corners you can work with. But I also know in these foreground grasses, I wanted something a little darker. The darkest one I have here is really cool, and I may use this one too. But I'm going to try a combination of this warmer green. That's a dark. It's kind of dull. I didn't want anything too bright in this with the greens anyway. And there's a duller, okay? So let me start working on these a little bit. All I'm going to do is get a little hint of some of these greens in these grasses. Not as much there because it's getting further away. Just a little hint. I'm going to make some of that's the reflection. Maybe a little bit of this green in here. And then I'm going to gradually start with the cooler colors back in here. The cooler green. It's still a little dark, but it's giving me a little bit of variety to simulate that there is still some kind of green going on in there. And I'm tempted to, add just a little bit here because, you know, we got the sun coming from this direction. So I'm just giving a hint that there might be a little bit of this sun hitting some of these trees, kind of just on the tips and the foliage that would be kind of getting that angle of the sun. Now, I feel like still I need to push those background trees back a little further. They feel a little bit too similar in value to these here. You want your values to gradually decrease. The darkest values here, then it gradually gets a little lighter, and even the lightest back there. So let me see what I have that would work for that. This is that one that I just used. And, oh, actually I did. It's that one. And this is the one that I'm just now going to add. It's a little lighter in value and it's a little punchier in color. I'm not sure about that. Let's take a look there. It's a little cooler looking. I think I still need to go a little lighter than that. I like this color though. Maybe this little part of the tree's right in here because this section is a little closer and then those look like they could be really far away. So let's see what we got there. I think, let me try, see this value here? It's cooler and it's lighter in value. So let's just, let's just add a little bit of that in some places for these trees back there. I sound like Bob Ross. Happy little trees. Okay, so yeah, I like that. Now let's see, is there anywhere else I can introduce this color because it's a nice color? Maybe in some of these little bands of water. An interesting angle here. I like to try to harmonize the painting by having colors throughout. I actually feel like now I can add some of this even in these clouds because that sky doesn't have any of that color in it at all. That's another reason why I say wait on getting too crazy over things or too detailed, because later you might say, oh yeah, I can change that. I think I'm going to make this sky not as fixed when I'm done, because this, I'm really liking this down here. So I might just kind of blend a little more and keep it a little more subdued, so I don't have a sky and a land competing for attention, because I'm really liking this down here. These colors are beautiful. Okay, so now that I've got the little bit of the green and the teals and the blues in here, now it's time to warm it up. Now this is the color I was telling you I really, really like. If I just don't look at the sky and look at these colors here, that looks so good. So let's play around with this a little bit. I ended up spending more time on this little painting than I had planned, and I am definitely going to set myself a timer for the next one. And after I finish this painting, I'm going to show you another painting I did. I thought, since I still have all my pastels out, let me try another one. I did a larger one, same reference photo, same general concept, but I did it in about 15 minutes. I know I did it in less than 20 minutes. So sometimes it's a good idea, if you've already got your pastels out, go ahead and recreate a small painting or a painting again, because we usually learn much more, or we've worked out a lot of issues the first time around, and then, go ahead and do it again. I actually like working from the same reference photo multiple times. But again, I've shared before, I have slow Wi-Fi out here in the country, so I have to keep my videos under an hour. And we also have, some of you guys may be experiencing this too, we have slower Wi-Fi even than normal, because there are so many people online right now. We have to use something out in the country that utilizes cell towers, and so it's even slower than normal, and we have multiple people in the household using it because everybody's home, so working around all these things, and we're definitely all dealing with this just fine, and I pray everybody else is too. Now, I wanted to mention that I had said before in this little painting that because I was kind of enjoying the lower part of the painting, more of the landscape bottom part, and the sky, kind of had a little more detail in it, I end up just kind of softening the sky a little, not by really blending it with anything other than another pastel. I apologize. My head is in the way here, but I do move in a minute. So anyway, I'm also going to show you, I'm going to go ahead and let this one finish out while I'm painting it. I did speed it up, obviously, but I'm also going to show you the one that I did. I didn't film myself doing it. I wish I had. That I did in just about 15 minutes. So I'll be doing another painting today. This one I actually did yesterday. I have to film it and then I create it. And I will put a timer on. So that's another thing I recommend. You guys try to limit yourself. I find that when you limit yourself, it causes you to work a little bit more spontaneously. Oh, you saw right there is where I kind of softened that sky up a little bit. Now, if you add a color in a sky, you need to make sure, or whatever color is in the sky that you've added or you have, you need to make sure it is reflected in the water. So I go in and I add some of the lavenders and the peachy and the pink tones in the water as well. But again, you guys, I hope you're participating in this, and if you do, be sure to share your final painting in the Google album. I have found a way other than Facebook for us to share things, because there are some of my patrons who are not on Facebook. So I've been trying to really come up with an idea to do that, and that Google album is going to be the way to do it. So see the link that I provide. All you got to do is click the link. You'll go to the album, add your photo, add a description. If you have any trouble with that, let me know. I'll help you out. And that way we can all kind of be connected and see who's participating in this challenge and feel, a little closer together. All right, guys, enjoy. I'll finish this one up just to music, and I can't wait to bring you another painting tomorrow.